Good morning, everybody. Thank you for watching Taxes Made Easy. We've got a lot of interesting news today. I hope you had a great weekend. And so we're just going to dive into it. But our topic of the day, real quick, is going to be on a $20 offer and compromise. And people ask, how is this possible? I mean, it sounds like a lot of stuff that the IRS has gone after, over-promising. And we try not to overpromise. Our goal, one of our mottos here is to underpromise and over-deliver. But we're going to go through a case study, see exactly how it's done in a recent one. So stay tuned, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for watching Taxes Made Easy. And we've got a lot of news to cover. There's a lot of news out there. And there's a couple stories right now. First of all, I want to start with this story about Elon Musk. And Elon Musk has been in the news a lot. And particularly for he was really come out and very openly supported former President Trump. So again, that's earned him the ire of many, but at the same time, he's had a lot of lawsuits. This one, interestingly enough, is a California lawsuit that went in his favor. So he didn't pay a bonus when he took over Twitter, and the bonus was guaranteed to employees. And this one former senior director was promised a bonus, didn't get it, so he turned around and sued and tried to make it a class action suit against Twitter. Now, in law, there's a saying that you might have a valid case, but you might be the worst fact pattern for it. For example, if someone's Miranda rights are violated or something like that, but it's they're a horrible defendant. They have a record as long as your arm, and they were doing really bad things. Really bad facts can make for really bad case law. So if you have really bad fact pattern and you go to try to make a point, and your hands are dirty, you're very, very guilty. That makes court want to rule against you. So it's unfortunately, this is just human nature. When you pick someone to represent a class or to create new law or argue a new point, you don't want to do it with someone that is a really bad defendant or plaintiff at this point, because he's suing Elon Musk. And that's really what this boiled down to. First of all, they didn't think he was really eligible for it, but as a senior executive, in the contract even said that paying the bonus was a matter of discretion for the firm. However, Schobinger, which is the executive that was suing, argued against it as a senior director. So as a senior director, while he was still with the firm, he sent out a white paper stating that not paying the bonus would be prudent. And he didn't just put that out there, but he said, he offered a convoluted explanation for this. He argued forcefully while he was with the company that he shouldn't pay it, that he didn't have to pay it, etc. And then another problem with this, him trying to be a representative for class action, is that a large number of other proposed class members already arbitrated and came to an agreement with Twitter, and they don't like to mess with that. So they had waived off their class. So a lot of people that would have been in this class decided not to. But again, while legally it's permissible to argue one point and then change your mind now that's affecting you, argue something else. When you argue that other employees shouldn't get the bonus, and then you complain that you don't get the bonus. And this is in California. So this is a California court deciding this, and I think they decided it rightly. U.S. Northern District of California, federal court. So, little fun article here. And the next one is a little bit of a sadder article here. We all know the Boy Scouts of America are now Scouts of America. They dropped the boy off their name. Has been struggling. I grew up as a Boy Scout. I have been a Boy Scout leader. I've gone to Scout campouts. And my sisters, when they were younger, did participate in Girl Scouts. Yes, they sold the cookies. Yes, as boys, we try to eat them as much as possible. But Girl Scouts now is struggling as well. And part of it is that Boy Scouts is now accepting Girl Scouts, which Girl Scouts of America sued Boy Scouts of America over that. Didn't win. But they've definitely been struggling overall, or youth organizations like this have been struggling. Youth sports has been struggling all across the country. Parents just aren't signing these kids up for activities like this like they used to. And there's been a lot of cultural changes as well that has affected Boy and Girl Scouts. So after running a deficit for multiple years in the millions of dollars, they're raising their fees. And it sounds like a huge number, 240%, but raising their membership fees from $25 to $85. I say kudos to them that they kept it at $25 for so long. I didn't realize it was so low. Boy Scout fees are much higher, or scouting fees are much higher. And one of the big complaints I got from scouting is that you go and you would purchase all the awards, and I did that for a time for Cub Scouts and also Boy Scouts, and they're expensive to buy. And so the overall cost of being part of these organizations can be prohibitive for poor individuals and people that struggle financially. And so this is raising it to $85 is going to hurt a lot of people. It's going to hurt their membership. And a lot of people are decrying that this is going to cause that a lot of poor families won't be able to participate. So again, they raised dues to $85 for girls, $45 for adults, mainly because they're trying to address their budget deficit here. And so again, someone here, Sally Bertram from Indiana. So I just feel like a triple jump in numbers is going to this. All the Girl Scouts in Southeast Indiana, people out here do not pay that kind of money. So again, while I might not agree with them on everything, I think it's great to have these organizations that have kids out there doing stuff, learning skills. But again, to see this kind of pay increase and to see them struggle financially, they're about $4 to $5 million in the hole, and they're just burning through their reserves, which are almost exhausted. So not good news. But overall, there are plenty of youth organizations out there. 4-H is another great one. I've seen people, young kids working with animals, with horses, and it's really great to have young kids out there working with animals and doing positive things, developing skills and talents, and that's what we should be promoting. Next in the news, and this is more economic news, Boeing, that has been really on the rocks, came to a tentative deal, which is great. Not only great for Washington and Seattle area, but also for the country. And again, we'd love to see Boeing really turn a new leaf, become productive, address their issues, and get back to where they were as a great American company. A little bit of patriotism there, but also it's good for the workers, it's good for everybody. So the tentatively came to a 35% pay increase, as well as increases to 401k matches, et cetera, to address a lot of their concerns. And they're going to try to move forward. So again, this is currently 35% wage increase, $7,000 ratification bonus, and instead of payouts, and improved 401 contributions, and then a punch and multiplier. Not exactly sure how all of that's going to work out, but I think it's good for the workers to get back to work. It's good for Boeing to resolve this strike, and we've had a couple big strikes lately. And that could have a massive effect on the economy and on different regions. So I think it's really good to get this out and to get this dealt with. next article here. And this is continuing with the stories coming out of Israel. And this is featured by the American Military News, which is the news source for this. It came out yesterday. And this comes from a source from the Los Angeles Times. So on one hand, it's coming from the Los Angeles Times that is very leans left, to say the least. But I think it's interesting to note, not only did the Biden administration stop issuing arms, this is, the direct threat to the Biden administration. This came out and told that it will lose U.S. military armament. So all military arms moving forward. So again, unless they allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza Strip. So this is an unprecedented situation where you have a military force attacking out of a refugee center, using the citizens still as human shields, and it's a very difficult situation because they're entrenched. And so they said there's badly needed food, medicine, and other aid that's been cut off for weeks, but and only scale amounts have trickled in. However, any aid benefits Hamas because they take it, they steal most of it, they sell it as a markup, and then use that to fund their ongoing terrorism. So it's direct aid to Hamas. So again, it's a very touchy situation, and so it's U.S. law prohibits military to countries that block U.S. humanitarian assistance to a zone in need. So it's very tricky. Gaza has been labeled a zone in need, but at the same time, it's a war zone right now. And instead of normally when war people, the military is forced out, you're dealing with conventional military. This is a very different situation when you have a force embedded in and fighting, behind a civilian population. So it really is a disaster the way things are happening now, because you have the people suffering, and Hamas is only exacerbating that. And the question is, how's it going to be resolved? Now, who's considering plan to order the complete evacuation of northern Gaza, and then cut off all food and water to northern Gaza. Anybody that listens to the orders will get food and water where it's not controlled by Hamas, and then they can focus on and root out Hamas, which is what happened the first time they invaded. And anybody who did not flee would be considered to be a militant. And so who knows if that's actually going to carry through and actually be conducted. One of the concerns here is, and this is an article, I might have to come back to it, and we're at a break, so I'll have to come right back to it. Welcome back, everybody, and we were just wrapping up with this article about withholding arms and suspending all military armaments to Israel unless they allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza. And it's a very tricky situation all around. Next article really expands on how tricky this is. So this is from New York Post. So a lot of people were scratching their head. Iran launched this huge missile attack at Israel after taking out the pager attacks with the radio attacks. I mean, Israel really did decapitate Hezbollah in the north with these huge intel coups. And then Iran launched this huge, massive missile barrage at Israel. So Iran expected to be hit back. Everybody expected Israel to hit them back. And what happened? U.S. intelligence show that Israeli military preparations for a response were leaked online. And they were leaked by a Telegram user, Middle East Spectator. And so there's this is an alleged Pentagon document. And so if you wonder why the United States have been left out of most of Israel's decisions, this is why. So again, they have these huge successes when they leave the United States, in particular the Biden administration, in the dark. This is unprecedented. We've never had this kind of relationship with Israel that I can remember, where they can't tell us. And this is according to a CNN article. They can't tell us what they're doing because it gets leaked. Iran gets forewarned. Again, any attacks against the Houthis in Yemen, they get forewarned about it, so it just does superficial damage, doesn't do any real damage. That's really concerning. And so, again, the documents describe military preparations by Israel, and again, the amount and various kinds of missiles to be used. And the dates were just last week, 15th and 16th of last week. And so they're trying to figure out, apparently there's a mole or a leaker helping out Iran, of all countries, in the Pentagon. So, again, Mick Mulroy, former Deputy Assistant Secretary, said if it's true that Israeli tactical plans to respond to Iran's attacks have been leaked, it is a serious breach. Well, yeah. Trust is a key component, and depending on how this was leaked, that trust could be eroded. I think the fact that it was a period. Why would they tell the United States what they're doing and coordinate it with us if they can't trust us as far as they can throw us? Yeah, it's pretty. It's very interesting here. What's going on? And Netanyahu's vacation house was also struck with an explosive drone. He wasn't there, but again, they're trying to return the favor and hit Netanyahu. So again, it's a very dicey situation. I think the Middle East is a much more dangerous situation now, and the trust that Israel has with the United States, I'm sure, is at an all-time low. So it's very, very interesting here what's happened, and want to move forward. So I want to touch on a couple more articles here. And this one, again, this is a very concerning one about Tren de Agua, which is, or Agua, which is, again, the Venezuelan migrant gang taking over apartment complexes in Colorado. We've all heard the news. And they're spreading like a plague. Now they're challenging gangs and engaging in turf warfare in Chicago. Now they have been in New York. So they, like many gangs, they recruit minors that get a slap on the hand in our justice system to do some very heinous crimes. So right now, and they're living out of taxpayer-funded shelters. And apparently they've committed over 50 different crimes that we know of. And again, they're called Los Diablos de la 42nd, which is Little Devils of 42nd Street. At first, they just went from purse snatchings to gunpoint robberies against locals and tourists alike. And they're getting worse. So they had a graduation of sorts. They start with minor crimes, and then it moves up from there. And then they're using knives and guns for strong armed robberies. And so, and again, the detective Jason Savino is commenting on this. And we know they have access to guns because they've used them, and they've been brazen enough to showcase pistols in and around their social media. But finding them and again, the revolving bail system in New York just means they're right back on the street, which is why That's why gangs target minors, because they take advantage of our leniency in laws. And so they're always controlled by an older gangster. Again, this is nothing new, but the audacity and voraciousness of this new gang is very, very concerning. So again, it's something to be concerned about. If you are in New York, you're visiting New York, be careful. Thefts like this are on the rise, and again, the new FBI numbers being revised are showing up that crime is on the rise in the United States right now, especially in these areas. So moving on to, this is a Red State article, so right-leaning. What they call a death tax really is an estate tax. So they call it a death tax because you get taxed when you're dead. It's the only two things you can't avoid in life are death and taxes. Estate taxes are part of that if you have a large enough estate. So part of her proposal is to increase drastically the idea of having the rich pay is making sure that when people pay, when they pass away, a lot of their assets or most of their assets go through probate, or they have to get taxed as they go through this. So even trust planning can only protect so much of an estate. And again, I'm not an expert on how that works with trust planning. But again, when you have under the TCJA, which was signed in 2017, started January 1st, 2018, will expire January 1st, 2026, is it doubled the size of the exemption for taxes. So if you have an estate under 13.6 million right now, you don't pay any taxes on it, which you pass it on to your children, your grandchildren, etc., whoever you choose as your beneficiaries. Once that expires, it's going to drop down to 5 million as adjusted for inflation. So it's going to drop more than half. So the concern here is that anybody that has a small business, anybody, family farms, you're looking at the total asset value rather than income. So again, this is a quote from the Heritage Foundation, again, very right-leaning, and an economic advisor to the Trump campaign. But really, this is to hit millionaires and billionaires. If a parent dies, this really are going to hit a lot of people that have any kind of business. The business will have to pay roughly 40% estate tax rate if this gets passed, plus another 5 to 50% depending on which state they die in. So roughly half of a family inheritance must now be forked over to pay taxes. So again, when you think about if you have any kind of business and you have to pay 45 to 55% of the value to the government, what's going to happen to that business? It's not going to be a family-run business. It's either going to get sold or get liquidated, one of the two, to pay the taxes. And this is going to hurt a lot of businesses that have been built up and get passed on generation to generation. I have a case right now with a farm. They're farmers. They have farming equipment. They have land, etc. But it's tough on farmers. If you want to work your butt off, and you can do decently as a farmer, but it is a tough industry. You work hard. And there's a lot of family-owned farms still, despite corporations buying up as much as they can. But when someone passes away, to have half of that tax, there's no way they're going to be able to keep it. It's going to kill most family businesses and farms, etc., that are somewhat successful. So you're looking at the total value of the estate if it's that 5 million thing threshold. You're looking at 45 to 15%. Now, could it be worse? Always could be worse. So Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts has introduced a bill. The state tax would go up to 55 to 65%. And the exemption would lower to 3.5 million, which means a lot of more businesses, as much as 2/3 of estates would fall under that. And people that have estates, and this is a business killer. That's exactly what it is. So if the federal government taxes you 55 to 65%, you throw state taxes on that 60, on the low end, 60%, the high end, 80%. If they do a 65% and you're in a high tax state of 15%, that's an 80% tax on someone's estate. That any sizable business that goes through that, there's no way that business is surviving. It's going to have to get sold or liquidated, one of the two, to pay this tax. Now you do have the exemption amount, so you get the 3.5 million or the 5 million, depending on the plan. But anything over that would be taxed at up to 80%. So over here as low as 60, but as high as 80%. And that's the thing, when you have those kinds of situations, having family-owned businesses might be a thing of the past. So again, very concerning for a lot of business owners. What's going to happen? I have one last article. This is actually very interesting. This came from Politico, which is a left-leaning site. And this comes from California. And this is something I actually agree with them on. So is there still any pop left in Californians fighting against soda, which is interesting. So small California towns, California being California, they love taxes. And they've tried to tax soda before. Is soda as good for us as the soda companies would have us believe? Absolutely not. It's horrible for us. That's not healthy. And so many tax companies have tried to tax it the same way they tax cigarettes, the way they tax alcohol, treat it as a sin tax. So it passes an excise tax specifically on soda to try to discourage people drinking soda. Do I have a problem with that? Well, if they're going to do it to cigarettes and alcohol, why not to soda? That's my 2 cents worth. But guess who comes in and fights it tooth and nail? It's not big tobacco now. It is soda companies that have really, the soda lobby, that have fought this tooth and nail from Mexico to the Philippines. They come in and really do fight tooth and nail to fight these soda taxes. So Berkeley, of course, was one of the first, pushing this soda tax. And when they passed this tax, or when they first started, they got an onslaught of spending from Coke, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper. All the major soda companies came in and just spent like crazy. But in liberal cities like Berkeley, it didn't go far, so it still passed. So what did the lobbyists do? They lost at the local levels, and then they jumped to the state level, to the legislature to pass a bill banning local governments from any of these kinds of taxes for 6 years. So now, 2024, 6 years is coming up, and Santa Cruz is like, okay, we'll line up to fight this. And it's a 2 cents per bottle tax. It's specifically crafted to provoke a lawsuit over the 2018 law that should be going away. Anyway, going away soon. And they fought the Berkeley tax in 2014, and they're already gearing up and fighting the Santa Cruz measure. Why do the soda giants want to fight this so bad? First of all, it's just the first step. It's like with cigarettes, and cigarette consumption is on the decline. I think that's a good thing. But again, it falls on the poorest, the people that actually do smoke, and it also falls on the poorest that consume more soda. But is it a good thing that they're consuming more soda? I would argue no. But again, there's choice here. There's a lot of arguments back and forth. So I'm not saying which side you want to be. I'm sympathetic to this, to the taxing soda. And so this has been their general strategy: losing in the cities, winning in the state. Let's see what happens. Again, it's an interesting article. We're gonna check on this if you're not aware of how much soda is actually in, or sugar is actually in soda. It is mind-boggling, how many tablespoons of soda or teaspoons of soda are in every can of soda. More of an interesting article than anything else, but again, it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. So I want to really jump to the article or main topic of the day, trying to get it more time and attention. So we had just over the weekend, and we get about 1 or 2 of these accepted every day. People ask about offer and compromises. Is this a real thing? It doesn't sound real. How can this actually happen? And I just want to break this and do another case study before we move on to other things as to what does this actually look like. So how does someone qualify for a $20 offer? And in this case, they owed roughly $30,000. So just over $30,000. And you tell people, look, I can pay, and there's a filing fee of $205 too, unless you get a fee waiver. But people think this is absolutely nuts that someone could actually get an offer of $20. We just got the acceptance letter. It's confirmed. It's done, and he can, he's free as long as he just needs to make sure he doesn't owe again. So before we break, I know we're coming up another break in a minute. Just want to go over how does this qualify? What does this situation look like? And this individual is living in California, so he's living in an expensive area. He's not bringing in a lot of income, so again, he's just been struggling. But he is bringing in $3,000 to $4,000 a month. And the question is, how is he surviving in California, bringing in that? And the answer is he's not. So when you look at his monthly allowable expenses, they're over $4,000. He has a small balance he's paying the franchise tax for, but that doesn't change it. Basically, he's just, like many people, struggling to get by. Now, one thing that really helps is he doesn't have a lot of assets. He has a few bank accounts. He has about $1,000 in savings, and that's it. And then he has a vehicle that is underwater. High monthly payment, vehicles underwater, and he's just struggling to pay this off. So very typical of what we see for people that have been struggling for quite some time. And this is kind of a classic look. They qualify 100% for this offer and compromise, and this has not been an easy process. So just kind of, even though they might qualify, it might be a slam dunk. Once we get there, it takes a long time to get there. So we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back, everybody. So just want to walk through this case study, try to make this as clear as possible. I kind of prefaced it beforehand. This is somebody that came in, didn't know where to start. They were very confused. They knew that they had to file multiple years. So when he came to us, this is kind of scary. Now, this is why I grabbed a newer one, thinking, hey, I've grabbed something newer rather than something that started and took 2 to 3 years to accomplish. This took almost 3 years to go through the whole process, which, again, it's kind of scary to think of, but there's reasons for it. So, again, if you think it's going to be a quick, easy process, it depends how ready you are to negotiate. So, number one thing, this guy did not have any returns filed from 2017 moving forward. First came to us in December 21. So, we started the case in December. Not a whole lot could be done in December because everybody takes a break, last couple of weeks for Christmas, New Year's, etc. But we started on the case right away. Started getting the documents we needed to represent them, file them, and it took a couple of weeks for that to happen. But he was already being levied by California. So he owed California and the IRS. He didn't owe California much either, so we didn't bill him for that. But we went in as a courtesy and negotiated with California as well. Again, he only owed a few thousand, less than $3,000 to California, but these are the people really hammering in on him. So, again, this is so important even if you don't hire us right away, it is so important to get on track and figure out what needs to be done. If you haven't filed returns, if you're not sure what needs to be filed, call us and get some good information. Because what happened here, we reached out to Franchise Tax Board, California Franchise Tax Board, they have a collection arm over there. And they said, well, that's nice. He owes us, you want the levy release, but they were taking $300 from him, but that's 10% of his total income. They will do a one-time levy release, but you have to get these returns in ASAP. And the funny thing with California, and so when you're dealing with state debts as well as IRS, you have to be more on top of it. You have to send them certified. You have to make sure they receive them. And once they show them received, then they'll treat it as received. With the IRS, if you file something electronically, if it's within the last 3 years, you can usually do that. For older returns, you have to mail them in, and it's a 6-month processing time. But you can fax them in to the IRS, and the IRS will see, oh, okay, we've got these filed. We'll negotiate something else out while they'll either put a hold on the case or they'll negotiate while we wait for those returns to post. The Franchise Tax Board is different, and every state is a little different on how they handle this with multiple years of past due returns. You have to fax it in to show them, look, we filed it, but it's still not treated as filed, or you're still not treated as you've complied with your filing responsibilities until it shows up in their system. So you have to send it certified and then send the fax of the return signed and dated to the Franchise Tax Board, and you also have to send proof that it was filed certified with tracking information. So again, it's a little more different with the Franchise Tax Board. People file tax returns all the time with us, and through IRS returns, and we always tell them, look, send us signed and dated copies. We can just fax this to the IRS and expedite the process. And if the IRS loses them, we have something to just send it right to them, because again, they're great at losing documents. IRS and the Franchise Tax Board. You send it certified, you have proof of when it was sent. You can say, look, it's on you. I'll send you another copy if you lose it, but here's my proof I did it, and it's been submitted. So we put him in touch with this client with a tax preparer. Very quickly, first of all, we saw what needed to be done. We put him in touch with the tax preparer, and then we got all of the financial information, the tax transcripts, and called the state and got all their state withholdings. So they had all their information to file these older returns. So if you are lost, you don't know where to go, you don't even know how much you made in past returns, we will pull all the information that the IRS and the state has on you. Not all states have this information, though, so it's always better to have original W-2s, original documents. If you don't, we'll make do. It's really funny that CPAs and tax preparers, when they're filing current year returns, they want to save every penny, they want to make sure everything's right, and you should, because you have all that information. With what we're doing, going years back, there's times they don't know, they don't have any documents, they don't remember what they were doing, especially if someone had any health issues. So a lot of times we're just getting stuff done rather than saving every penny, because we don't have the information to do. And ironically, with some cases, like an offer and compromise, the more you owe, the more likely it is you'll be accepted for an offer. But you'll see, even though this is a $20 offer, even though they should have easily qualified for it, this was not an easy offer. We had a fight for this one. And lately, we've been having a fight for almost all of them. Believe it or not, it used to be that we'd submit an offer. We might have to wait 5 to 6 months. But on good offers, we would just get a letter back saying, hey, everything's done, everything's accepted. That almost never, I haven't seen that in years, since prior to the Biden administration. So we started the tax prep right away. We're working on the Franchise Tax Board. We're working with the IRS, so we're handling multiple cases here. And the Franchise Tax Board is the one levying, so we're moving as quickly as possible with them. We got the whole time with the IRS to get the returns prepared, so we don't have to worry about them. But again, right away, within 4 to 5 days, we're in contact with the franchise tax board. They have a representative handling their case and got them directly over to a tax preparer. So in January, they're working on getting those returns done. One return in particular needed to be done as soon as possible. We got that return done in February. So one of our tax preparers turned that around very quickly and got that filed in February. However, it took longer to get the other returns, 17 was already, but 16, 18, 19, and 20 at that time, they needed to do all of those returns. Those were done by April. So fairly quickly, got all the returns done. Now comes the fun part, waiting. So just because you get your returns in, you think you can breathe a sigh of relief and go, okay, now you have to wait for them to process. So again, we set up a payment plan with California, buy some time. It was only $85 a month, something he could afford. That kept him from garnishing his wages. And if it was a small amount, under $3,000, and a lot of times it just makes sense to just set up a small agreement, get rid of the state tax debt. California has a horrible offer and compromise program. It is very difficult to qualify for. And so we just set them up on a low payment plan, and by now it's already paid off. So that was taken care of. We moved, and so again, even though we filed those, that bought us some time, but it took time for those to actually process. So they were filed in April of 22. And again, we're just following up on those returns to see when they process. So we're getting all the way to September. So we started following up in July. Hey, just making sure you have them. Everything's been received. We don't just not call on a case for 6 months while we wait for them. We make sure that they're received. And then if they tell us, hey, it's going to take so long to process it, then once we have an idea from them, they have it, and it might take 60 days, if whatever. Then we might put it out for a few months. But an issue popped up in September because they didn't give them any credit for the W-2 withholdings that they had proof of. So again, we had to fight that and get that accepted. At the same time, we're following up with the franchise tax board. Again, they take 6 months to process all the returns. And that carries us through to October. And again, we confirmed that. And in November, we followed up with the IRS. We were still waiting on 2021 to be processed. So that's why it's so important that stay on top of filing your returns. And while he was paying, we had to go back and forth once everything was processed with the franchise tax board. And in November, set up an installment agreement of $83 a month for 24 months. They wanted more. They wanted to pay it off in 12 months, but again, we got them to confirm that. So it took almost a year for the returns to process and then to set up the installment agreements, which stopped the collection activity so he could breathe. We finally got him filing compliant, so he's paying his returns on time, or filing his returns on time, not owing moving forward. So one of the concerns here as we move forward is making sure that he can continue to not owe the IRS. During this time, he had income issues. So one of the concerns here is that he was going to owe again for 2022. So when someone's going to owe again, we have to tailor this to make sure everything is included, that he's not going to have a balance moving forward. the last thing you want to do is file an offer compromise if you know someone's going to owe, and then it just defaults the whole situation. So again, we finally got things set up with the franchise tax board moving forward into 23. Now we're into 23. We put together all of his income. He had a business going down, like that he was doing, and we have to now make sure he's filing compliant for 2023. So going into the next year, making sure he gets his 22 returns. Now that all of his returns are processed, we just need to make sure that he continues filing his returns. We need to make sure that he is filing his estimated tax payments, so he's not going to owe moving forward. And so that's called payment compliance. Those two things are absolutely crucial in the case, or they will just kick it right back at you. Now moving forward, we submitted an offer. We drafted it, and it looks like we waited for the 22 return to get processed to make sure there weren't any issues. We got that done. And then he switched to W-2, which was great. When he started working for someone, or he started paying himself a W-2, that took a lot of taxes out. And then we finally got his offer together and got it prepared June of 2023. So we hired December 21. This is a year and a half later. We are finalizing getting his offer ready because we want to make sure when we do it that everything's right, everything's together, that we're not going to have issues moving forward. And I'm running out of time on this one case. So we got his offer submitted, and I've got to erase this. He had to get. It took another couple months for it to finalize all the paperwork for him to get everything to us, sign the documents, get it back to us. But it looks like in October we submitted it. And then to cut this short, we submitted it, followed up with the IRS. We have to follow up with them consistently to babysit and make sure that it goes through all the processes. The first thing they asked for was proof that he was making estimated tax payments, or proof that he wasn't going to owe for 2023, because he had owed for quite a few years before that. So we had to provide that. We responded to that. And that was the first salvo from the IRS trying to reject the offer. And we made sure they got it, and then followed up. The first offer, the offer examiner actually rejected the offer and kicked it back, again, try to reject the whole thing. So again, they kept demanding documents that didn't make sense because he was on W-2 income anymore. And then they wanted a P&L moving into 23. We sent what they requested. They got it. They still didn't accept the offer. So now we're in January of 24. So 3 years later, they asked for a whole set of new documents. We explained what happened with it, and they're digging back years in the past. Apparently, he was connected to a company that collapsed. They want to know what was going on. We explained it to him. She still rejected the offer. So we finally got the rejected offer in April. We appealed it, and if I remember correctly, he had a vehicle that he just exchanged it. He took it in, couldn't afford it anymore, and made a deal where he kind of sold it back to the dealership through the bank, and it paid off the loan. He walked away not owing anything, but he got zero from the car. Returned the car to the dealership, and that's what was a sticking point. The offer examiner did not get it. We had to appeal it. So we appealed it in April of this year, went through, finally got, went through the appeals conference, argued it through with the appeals, and finally got the approval over the weekend. So again, this came in over the weekend, brand new $20 offer accepted. So again, long and involved. Call us if you have any questions, and we will see you tomorrow because I'm out.